quick little side note before starting. I'm so sorry that I did not have an episode last week. Finals were just absolutely kicking my booty, and so I just wasn't able to find the time to create an episode for you. So I am so sorry, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode that's just a little extra longer for you. So I'm sorry again, but enjoy. Welcome back to another episode of Halftimes and Harmonies. And today, I would love to take a nice little deep dive into our softball regular season that we've had. Now, I did spend a lot of my first episode talking about the softball season that was coming up, and obviously, a lot has happened since then. So, regular season is pretty much finished, and we're about to get into conference tournament play. This weekend, with all of the major conferences and all the conferences playing for automatic bids into the tournament, and some teams are fighting for their lives in the NCAA tournament just to be selected. So we're gonna get into a little bit of the regular season overview and preview a little bit of the conference tournaments. I will also do another episode in a few weeks that will be previewing Oklahoma City and stuff that might happen at the Women's College World Series once we get through regionals, super regionals, and I guess all the conference tourneys as well. So be tuned for that in a few weeks. But for right now, we're just going to talk about the material that we do have in the very fast approaching conference tournaments. So, starting with the recap of our regular season champs for all the major conferences. So, starting with the Big 12, obviously we have Oklahoma, who continue to dominate. My goodness, they're just on fire. You just can't really stop them. They don't really have many weaknesses. I will say they do have some. Like every team does have some weaknesses, but they just look pretty dominant. Their series, they just swept Oklahoma State, and I mean, it was them being dominant, but at the same time Oklahoma State did have a slight collapse, and we'll talk about that later. But Oklahoma, of course, they're dominating. We all expected them to win. And I think what's interesting is, like, for me, I don't think there's any pressure on Oklahoma at all whatsoever to win another title. That's like almost expected, and it's so expected to the fact where all the pressure I think kind of shifts to the field. Like everyone else, it's like, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna beat these girls? Like, are you gonna beat them? And I think the pressure is really on the field to be like, okay, we can't have these gals repeat. Three-peat, my bad. So I don't think there's much pressure on Oklahoma, truthfully, genuinely. So there's that, but Oklahoma, they're probably gonna take that momentum into the conference tourney, and which is, I think, right down the road in Oklahoma City. So they should be all right. Moving on to the Pac-12, we have a team that I don't think has gotten enough media coverage with UCLA. Literally haven't seen much about them. They look pretty solid. Their only losses have really come towards the beginning of the season. I mean, like one maybe like in April or something like that. I think they lost to like Cal or something. I don't know. But besides that, they've looked pretty dominant. They've been quietly dominating over out west. And so I think they should. There's going to be some teams that are going to, try and take them down in the conference tourney and I guess the NCAA tournament. But I think they might cruise to a tournament victory. Then moving on to my un- unbiased opinion of the ACC regular season champs of the Florida State Seminoles. Good God, I love them so much. Absolutely. Also, another team I think is quietly dominating. Doesn't get as much coverage as well. Um, they're clicking at the right time for sure. The bats are starting to heat up. The pitching is starting to find its groove a little bit more. And there's just no quit in this team. I don't know what it is. I mean, they've been down in the sixth or later inning countless times this season and have found ways to win, and they're right now on a 13-game winning streak after a sweep of Louisville. And there's just no quit because they could easily just quit against Louisville. It was 4-4. No, they were down 4-1 in like the fifth inning or something. They come back to go ahead and not only just tie the game and what is it? This was like the sixth that they tied it in, and then go on to win it on a walk-off homer in like the 11th inning, man. So like, there's just no quitting that team, man. And also, I think that's gonna help them, certainly down the long run, and it's definitely gonna help them in the long run because the tournament is all about not quitting. I mean, just not quitting because they could easily hung their heads and move on. And I do think they do have a chip on their shoulder from last year, losing Mississippi State in regionals as a number 2 seed and being the first number 2 seed to do so. So they definitely have a chip on their shoulder and are using that as motivation probably moving forward. Yeah, hopefully I will be talking about them in 3 weeks when I talk about Oklahoma City. But moving on to the Big Ten champs of Northwestern. To be quite honest with you, I don't really keep up with Big Ten softball that much. I don't think it's been entirely relevant. I don't know if the Big Ten is as strong as it's been in years past. I haven't really heard much from it. I mean, Northwestern, I think, is one of the few teams in the Big Ten that's like actually ranked in general. So yeah, no, the Big Ten hasn't really been that prominent in softball, so I'd expect Northwestern to just go ahead and cruise to a conference tourney victory because I have no idea what's going to happen up there. But at any rate, moving on to Wichita State, who are our American champs, American Conference champs. They're also, I think, a sneakily good team who I don't think a lot of people probably want in their regional. Will they host? Probably not. However, will they have a national seed? I'm not sure, but they will definitely ruin somebody's regional for sure. So I think people should probably watch out for them because they did beat Oklahoma State twice, and they've beaten some other teams too. I think they beat Baylor as well. So they've beaten some top teams for sure. So I don't think anybody wants them in their regional, and I think I'd expect them also to cruise to a conference tourney victory. I mean, you've got UCF and all of them, pining for firm, but yeah, no, I think they should be all right. And moving on to our SEC champs, Tennessee, there. I don't know what to think about Tennessee. I mean, they won against they won the series against South Carolina, but dropped that last game this past weekend. So I don't know what to make of Tennessee. They're strong, trust me. Oh my goodness. Their pitching staff is probably the best in the country for sure. And they've got a few people that are up for player of the year, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, they're strong. But they are vulnerable. I will say they're slightly vulnerable. And so yeah, those are our champs of the regular season champs for all the major conferences that low-key matter, I guess. But I also wanted to talk about a few top teams that aren't their conference champs that I think could do some crazy stuff in the conference tourney. So starting with number 5, Texas. I don't know. Texas has been a little hit or miss. They've looked fantastic against like lower ranked Big 12 teams, but at the same time, like they swept Oklahoma State, but ended up getting swept by Baylor. So I don't know what to make of that. Genuinely, I think Texas, I don't know. We'll see. They were kind of like this last year. I mean, okay, actually last year they were super duper heavily underrated anyway. Super underrated last year. But this year I think they might be a little overrated, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. Yeah, so and then also Oklahoma State as well. Oklahoma State, my hot take is that they peaked in March and they've just been struggling ever since and getting swept by Oklahoma at home in the Bedlam series. And especially after that Saturday loss where they were up 2-0 in the 6th, in the 7th, in the top of the 7th, and they just let it go. they just, I don't know, they just can't finish games anymore, and it's sad to see, but I hope they can figure out something because they're a super duper talented team. They just need to close out games and figure out how to close out games against quality opponents and just opponents in general. So yeah. And then Stanford also might be UCLA's biggest threat to the Pac-12. There's also Washington for sure. I see that. And I'm pretty sure Stanford, they're tied. Yeah, okay. Stanford and Washington also, I think both of them they're both great programs, and I think they both have a chance to, I don't know, make UCLA a little nervous in the conference tourney, but yeah. Clemson. Now, Clemson is a very, very hard team to judge because the only quality, genuinely and truthfully, the only quality opponents they have played are, I think, did they play Duke? I'm not entirely sure. I think they played Duke. Well, the best opponent they played was Florida State, and they got swept at home. So make it at what you want. But I don't know. Clemson, I don't think they've played enough quality opponents to be taken as seriously as they probably hope. But then again, it's interesting. But Clemson, again, very hard to judge because I don't think I have enough quality statistics or quality info or material on them. Georgia. Now, okay, we're going to move. Well, also, okay, we're going to stay with the ACC for a second here. Duke. Duke, very hard team to judge as well. I also think they're sneakily good and could make some really interesting noise in the conference tourney as well. They did steal one from Florida State in their series against each other. So I don't know what to make of Duke. I think they'll be all right though. They'll still make the tourney just in general. I think their biggest question is whether or not they'll host a regional. But yeah, I do think that is also something that's interesting about all these teams. I think really like teams 5 through 25 are like up in the air. I have no idea what's gonna happen with them because they're all like so close to each other, and it's so hard to like just rank them based on the eye test. So I think 5 through 25 is completely up in the air. I think our top 4 seeds are kind of set. I say that very loosely, of course, because anything can happen. But yeah, I think our top seeds are pretty set. But I think our top 4 are definitely in lock for hosting a regional. And have a very high chance of hosting a super if they make it, should they make it. So yeah, there's that. Moving on to the SEC. Yes, the SEC is wide open. Let me just say that. I've said it's been wide open. Well, personally, I've said it's been wide open the entire year. There's a lot going on there, for sure. Let's see. We've got Tennessee, of course. They've shown vulnerabilities. Georgia, they've been vulnerable. Let's see. Alabama, they are super duper overrated. This is not my hot take. This is just my observation. When Montana Faust is pitching for Alabama, good God Almighty, they look like they can topple anybody. But when she is not pitching, they look like they should not be ranked. So Alabama, I can't tell if they're overrated or underrated. I genuinely think they're leaning towards the overrated, but don't know how they've been ranked all this time with all these different losses to so many different people and dropping series to people ranked below them and all of that. Arkansas. Did I talk about? No, I did not talk about Arkansas. Arkansas, they've kind of they're in the same spot that they kind of were in last year, where they were like really good, not talked about that much. But they're like, they're where they're supposed to be for sure. They definitely have a chance to make some noise in the SEC tournament, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with Arkansas. Auburn, sneaky good, I think. I think taking that series against Alabama on the road, that was impressive. Still don't know how they rank below them, but that's interesting. LSU, I don't know. LSU's been pretty good. And then also the same with Florida. Florida's had a lot of their missteps. Florida's been all over the place. They started really, really high. They started at like number 3 at the beginning of the season, but they just dropped off. Lost to Florida State on the road and at home. Dropped some series left and right. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. So again, the SEC, absolutely wide open. No team is absolutely bulletproof. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of teams fighting for their tourney lives and just in general. But yeah, so softball season is coming to a close, but there's still so much softball left to be played. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens if we can get a new champion. If Oklahoma's going to three-peat, if we're going to have a blue blood come back for their crown, or if we're going to have somebody new hoisting the trophy this year. Actually, I'd probably bank on the first two, or one of the first two, but besides that, I'd like to thank y'all for joining me this week for this week's episode of Halftimes and Harmonies. I am so sorry I didn't have an episode last week, but finals was where it's absolutely just kicking my behind. So yeah, that I'm so sorry about that. So I couldn't get an episode up for you all, but thank you for joining me this week. I had to make it extra long because there's a lot to dive into with softball, and there's probably going to be a lot to recap in a few weeks anyway. So Thank you guys. And as always, au revoir, ciao, adios, and goodbye.